Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was on Stephen Colbert's late night show last night for a fluff piece interview and to give Americans the entirely wrong idea of what's happening in Canada. Now, to start this off, this interview was largely questions along the lines of this.
When you're Prime Minister of Canada, do you wake up every morning and think, I'm an important person? Because
that's this is the gist of it. No, we'll get into some of this interview, but it's quite funny to look at how other news outlets are showing this. Of course, the National Post using this image to show that in their story about the future appearance. This was yesterday of Justin Trudeau on the Colbert show. Now, Daily Hive reporting on this, saying while in New York, Canada's Prime Minister plans to visit Stephen Colbert's late night TV studio this week. The Canadian leader is already in New York for the 78th meeting of the United Nations General Assembly Summit of the Future. Well, what does the future look like? Well, it doesn't look like Stephen Colbert's show. This looks like a nightmare, actually. This is Stephen Colbert. If you think this is going to be objective in any way, this is just looking back during the COVID era. This is what you saw on the show. Ryan Gerritsen pointing this out. So Trudeau will be on Colbert's show, a show where he did this on late night TV. The most disturbing part of this clip is the audience all smiling and clapping. It's like a scene out of a horror movie where they all don't realize what is about to happen. That's right. Completely out to lunch in that studio. But let's have a look at some of the questions that actually were asked. I'm not going to go over the fluff piece stuff because what's the point of that? Let's talk about some of the things that have a little bit more contention to it. This is a clip that actually didn't even show up on the YouTube clip. I guess this was clipped out from Stephen Colbert's YouTube channel, but this one made it on Twitter thanks to Dre Legend. Thanks for posting this one, but let's have a look at this.
You're our closest ally, Canada. We stand, shoulder to shoulder, facing the world and the challenges of the world. I'm sure you're talking about a lot about the UN. What do we fight over? Because we don't think of ourselves as fighting with you guys. What's the big? Is it soft lumber tariffs? What is it? Fishing rights.
That's an issue. Yeah, these are issues,
Yes.
But they're always small issues that matter. I mean, you guys are paying too much for your lumber because you've got tariffs on it, and that doesn't make any sense. So we keep trying to point that out for you.
Right.
But
you know what else doesn't make sense? Canadians paying too much for their lumber. Why? Because of your Minister of Climate Change and Socialism. That's right. He's the guy who's largely responsible for shutting down industry in Canada that's utilizing natural resources. So I don't know why he's ragging on the U.S. for the softwood lumber thing. Of course, it would be nice if we would be able to have better trade with the United States, but Trudeau has largely not had a great track record with that. What else does he have to say?
We'll keep working on that.
But we come up to you guys to get cheaper drugs.
Yeah,
we come over the border for cheaper drugs. You guys okay with that?
We're happy to try and help you out, but it'd be really easier if you guys had universal health care.
Now, how's that going, actually? In Canada, the universal health care is falling apart. It's absolutely terrible. Now, what Americans don't realize about the Canadian healthcare system is it doesn't cover everything. Dental's not included. Yeah, they're trying to bring in dental, but it's only for seniors or really, really poor people. There's all kinds of issues with our healthcare system to the point that in British Columbia, the government is actually sending people to the United States to get care. This is where we're at with socialized medicine. So please, if you're from the United States and you don't know much about this, please heed this warning. Socialized medicine is not as much as it sounds, is not as chalked up to be. Absolutely. Now, the interview continued and more questions were asked, and let's have a look at this as they talk about the well, I'll just let him ask the question.
Here's one thing, it's something that I'm sure that comes quite clearly when the UN General Assembly is that the far right and flirtations with fascism, at the very least, is rising across the globe. Even in Canada, your Conservative Party leader, your opponent there, has been called Canada's Trump. And I'm sorry about that. But I'm curious why at least some form of nativism or far-right xenophobia might grow in a country even as polite as Canada. Why do you think this is getting a foothold even in your country?
So first off, Pierre Poilievre is the furthest thing from Trump. Trump is far more assertive than Pierre Poilievre on a number of issues. For example, Pierre Poilievre largely dances around the immigration issue, allows certain ministers to talk about the immigration issue, but really dances around it. Trump is at the forefront with the immigration issue. So just to give one example, but anything that the far crazy leftoids don't agree with is far right in their opinion, and this is par for the course. And again, this is another example of the projection that Trudeau brings forward in Canada, and that is that somehow the Conservatives are bringing far right or American style politics to Canada, when in fact it's Trudeau that's bringing American-style politics to Canada with the accusations of being far right, with the accusations of all of this stuff. If you look at the Conservatives in Canada on an American standard, they're probably center-left. If you would actually look at this and give their platform to an American citizen, they would say, wow, that sounds center-left to me. But what does Trudeau have to say in response to this?
That phrase, even in Canada, I mean,
we're not some magical place of unicorns and rainbows all the time. We got more than our fair share. But like the things that we've managed to do, we've had to work really, really hard at. I mean, universal health care was decades of trying to bring people together and make it happen. We've moved forward on world-leading fight against climate change with a price on pollution. We're moving forward with dental care for low-income Canadians.
Just so the American audience is probably
could be watching this might be wondering, what's this price on pollution thing? Justin Trudeau has put a sin tax on anything that contains carbon. So essentially any fuel, things like that. And what it's done is it's created this snowball effect that's risen the price of food and just general commodities that you would need on a daily basis, heating your home, all of this stuff. And that's because all of the fuel that you use to heat your home is now taxed. The diesel to truck food to the grocery store is now taxed at an exorbitant rate and arbitrarily. So this is what he talks about as a price on pollution, but it's really putting people in the poorhouse.
We're moving forward with $10 a day childcare. These are things that we have to fight for and that are really hard to do, but you can bring people together around thoughtful ideas, and you can also lose those things too. I mean, there's a big argument right now about whether dental care even exists. We've delivered it to 700,000 people across the country, and my opponent is gaslighting us and saying, oh, dental care doesn't even exist yet.
How many times have you been elected?
So it largely doesn't exist. This is the thing. It's been offered as a free service for elderly people and for very poor people. What was a big surprise to those people is it wasn't free. They got a bill for the service. Now in Canada, universal health care, again, getting back to the universal health care, is not universal, and it's not free. It's not free at all. The only things that are free is if you need to go to the hospital for something catastrophic. And you're probably gonna, if it turns out you got cancer or something like that, you're gonna sit on a waiting list for God knows how long, and probably until you die. The only way out of the system is through the system and its MAID program. That's the medical assistance in dying that's famous here in Canada. But I mean, I'm not going to drill on this one too much. The medical system in Canada is a tiered system where essentially if you want service, you go to the States, you go to America, or you wait until you're almost dead. Other than that, there's no preventative care. Physiotherapy, medicine, drugs, that's not free. These are things you have to pay for, or you have benefits through your workplace. Just like a lot of Americans have their insurance through their employer. This is where we're at. And he goes on to continue to ask more questions. And well, let's just leave it to this.
Okay. Yeah. Well, heading into next year's election, your party has lost some seats in Parliament. Your party is 17 behind in the polls. And this week, your rivals are calling a vote to possibly force you out of office. Give the devil
force an election.
Force an election. Okay, so force an election. Snap.
Again, I'm just going to give a little context to this. Here's Andrew Coyne talking about this. Andrew Coyne is a famous pundit on TV in Canada on the CBC, talking about just where the polling is. The Liberal Party, Justin's Liberal Party, is in 4th place. That has never happened in our history. In 2011, they were 3rd, and that was like when the party was destroyed previously, and then they came back. It looks like the Conservatives are going to win a supermajority, with the Liberals not even being the official opposition in this case. I'll let him continue.
App election, I believe it's called. Is that true? I love that. Yeah. Give the devil his due. What's their rationale? What would you imagine a reasonable argument for their complaints is?
Well, that it's a really tough time in Canada right now. People are hurting. People are having trouble paying for groceries, paying for rent, filling up the tank. There's a lot of anxiety
comparable to what's happening in the United States, like a similar situation.
Similar. Some of the things are a little trickier in Canada, where we lost a little ground over the past decades on building housing, so the housing crisis is a little sharper.
Okay, so he's glossing over some major issues in Canada here, of course. The housing crisis is largely due to his immigration policy, where we have tremendously more people coming into the country than we can even build homes. We can build homes at a capacity of about 240,000 homes per year. And yet last year we brought in 1 million people. This is Justin Trudeau's policy that is leading to a lot of issues. The prices of things going up. Yeah, that's largely due to the price on pollution, his carbon tax. This is the thing. In Canada, during the COVID era, he spent more money than any prime minister in Canada's history. He doubled our national debt. He doubled what it took us over 100 years to get to. He doubled it in a couple of years by printing money. Yes, inflation is through the roof. It is insane. And now, with interest rates having gone up, we spend more. We spend more on servicing the national debt, just paying interest, than we do in healthcare, in our failing healthcare system.
Our economic outlook is slightly more positive than the United States right now on a macro level, but people don't feel it when they're buying for groceries. So there's a lot of frustration. And that's one of the reasons why, even though our economy is by sort of macro metrics doing very well, we're saying, okay, even if it's doing well macro, let's invest more in people. Let's move forward on $10 a day childcare right across the country. Let's move forward on dental care. Let's move forward on pharmacare. So diabetes medication and prescription contraceptives will be free. These are the kinds of things that we're investing in so people can actually get a relief and have more money to pay for groceries or what have you.
Again, more government solutions to government problems. The problems that came into existence because of Trudeau. He's come in and said, you know what, I have a solution. The government was in the way. Well, we all know that the government was in the way. But what we're going to do is we're going to bring the government in to take over these industries. He's even gone as far as saying that the government should be your landlord, as he wants to move forward and take government property and lease it out to people for rents. That it's unbelievable. Anyway, this is the image that you get if you see Trudeau on Stephen Colbert. But the image in Canada is very, very much different. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you're not subscribed to the channel, this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. If this is the first time you've heard Justin Trudeau talking about this, leave a comment. Of course, many Canadians watch this show, so leave a comment. Tell me what you think about the disconnect between the reality on the ground in Canada and what he's portraying to an American audience on what he thinks is happening in Canada. Anyway, we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.